A grin flashed across Peter's face. It was like a mask grimace beneath those eyes like holes. But Baron, never has revenge been more beautiful. It is to see a plan of the most exquisite treachery. To make Leto exchange Caladan for Dune, and without alternative because the Emperor orders it.
What are the Mentats? But what the Mentats are not. I don't think there's much disputing that the Mentats received very, very little attention. And that itself might be legitimate. I defended that part of it partly, but only partly. I do wish we're going to get deleted scenes to get a fuller picture. To Denis' credit, he did film additional scenes, but I would say reluctantly moving towards he is distorting how the Mentats are. I do think that the portrayals are strikingly different from the book, and just going over the passages again, I'm struck by how different it is. What are the Mentats, and what aren't they? Or what could they not be? Well, at least with the Mentats we're speaking of in the main part of the story of Dune, the novel, and even the film, I would say the Mentats on the whole are extremely dangerous. They're very lethal. And we do get a little bit of sense of that with Pitter, though I think, frankly, it has a lot of issues, I know that. But the Lynch version, I think, was actually closer to the essence of Tufir and Pitter, because we did get a sense of the lethality and the sheer dangerous nature of Dune, the planet, and the Mentats, and how they're instruments by these various houses, whether the Harkonnens or Atreides. And there's been some recent good work on this, and I'm going to do more videos responding to it. But I do think, as convincing as they were with Atreides and the way I think they're misrepresented as heroes, I think with the Mentats, people are still underestimating just how deadly they are. Thufir's actual formal title is he's a master of assassins. Like, he very openly, explicitly talks about killing people and using spies and using, in his own words, Harkonian methods. So the Mentats, just on the whole, are trained to be extremely dangerous and extremely vicious.
You have read that Muad'Dib had no playmates his own age on Caladan. The dangers were too great. But Muad'Dib did have wonderful companion teachers. There was Gurney Halleck, the troubadour warrior. You will sing some of Gurney's songs as you read along in this book. There was Thufir Hawat, the old Mentat master of assassins, who struck fear even into the heart of the Padishah Emperor.
And in the novel, it's very explicit that the Baron Harkonnen does value them. He thinks that they're extremely valuable. He's willing to take Thufir even after Pitter is dead, but he doesn't like him. And beyond the personal grudge, he thinks he's very, very dangerous, and that a Mentat who is not controlled or supervised all the time can be extremely dangerous to your health. And I have to say here, unfortunately, I think Denis failed the books. Because a lot of people keep going that he's religious about the books, he loves the books, he always keeps referencing the books. This might just be an honest misreading, and I have to admit, I think I did this too, where just how, I wouldn't say the word evil, but how potentially vicious the Mentats are is not noticeable unless you're reading the book very, very carefully. Because I think the performances, insofar as we saw them, were very good, but they were very misleading. Even with Pitter, he's carrying out the Baron's orders, but we don't see how he himself is very vicious. In the books, he's helping the Baron out to essentially kidnap Jessica and have her for himself. What he's going to do with her, unclear, but it's very explicit in the books. He loves to torture people and hurt people. He's just genuinely enthralled at prospect of hurting people. And they really linger on whether they're going to have to torture the Duke, and Pitter perhaps enjoying it a little bit too much. We really don't get that in the film. He does come off as a vicious monster, but he's fairly subdued. And unfortunately, I think this is the same thing with Thufir, that with Thufir, we really get a sense that he's a very loyal, a very generous person. He really cares about Paul and the Duke and the family, and that's fine. That is somewhat canonical, but we're not getting how he and Jessica really hate one another, and how Jessica is not fearful, but she's well aware that Thufir is capable of doing some incredibly vicious things, and they have a rivalry with one another. And Thufir is very explicit. He says outright he doesn't trust Jessica. He doesn't like the Bene Gesserit. He considers the Bene Gesserit an enemy. He doesn't trust them at all.
He is good at analyzing the world around him, but he fails to analyze his own thoughts and feelings. She says he's biased against her for being a Bene Gesserit, and that he's jealous of her closeness with Leto. She brags about her power and uses her voice on Thufir. Thufir gets angry too, and he considers killing Jessica.
And the sense we get from the film is this is kind of a cuddly teddy bear who, when he's forced to, can think very awful thoughts to protect Paul and the Duke, but that's not really natural to him. That's not the Mentats. The Mentats are basically Machiavellian robots on all the time. I'm being metaphoric. Robots have a complicated existence in the Dune universe. Super Machiavellian robots. They're like that all the time. They're constantly thinking about conspiracies, lies, deceptions, assassinations, killings, even torture. That is part of what it means to be a Mentat, at least in the main story for this part of the saga. As much as the Denis Villeneuve project, I think, is brilliant on many ways, I think, unfortunately, if you are a fan of this part of the lore with the Mentat, it's very misleading and very misrepresentative of just how dangerous and vicious and bloody-minded they are. They are just really thinking of bloodshed and killing and just destroying people all the time. It's just an omnipresent thing. It's a part of their natural thinking process. They think about it. The most efficient ways to kill, the most efficient way to gain a profit, the most efficient way to get your goal done. And if your goal is to kill or get rid of an opponent, they're going to think about those things in a very constant way, portraying just how lethal I think we need to understand the Mentats are and how valuable they are in the Dune universe, because in the Dune universe, the killing of opponents is just a constant threat that you always have to be aware about. And that's just not communicated in the film version by Denis Villeneuve.